because he always used to attack when like defenders.
I think it's like
With Leandro Trossard about to sign for Besiktas pending a medical and personal terms, we might as well talk about his potential replacement, Tzolis of Club Brugge, the Greek international who could be potentially returning to these shores. Apologies, a much better player than when he initially left England. I think he's a Trossard replacement. I think they're very similar stylistically. Simply put, I think we've got a younger model. 24 years of age, 36 games played, 17 goals, 23 assists. Doesn't matter what league, you know, and obviously with Champions League experience, doesn't matter what league. That is going to whet the appetite, people. I know what fans are going to say. Oh, we need game changers, Bukola, Rodgers, etc. I'm not disputing that. Nor am I disputing the questions you lot probably have. You know, who? Because, you know, he's not a household name. Belgian league tax. Will there be an exchange rate? You know, simply put, the goals he scored in Belgium, will that correlate to the Premier League? Will there be a bit of an offensive exchange rate or a tax in that regards? Doesn't really matter to a degree what attackers we sign. They need to do it because of themselves. And obviously, there's certain things Arteta can change tactically. He, you know, another thing people would say, didn't he flop at Norwich? Why are Arsenal shopping at Club Brugge? Go and get Bukola. Go and get Morgan Rodgers. Stop trying to be clever and outsmart the market. Put the money down. Listen, I get it. I don't think any of them things are necessarily wrong. But when Arsenal fans hear attacking signings, of course, we want excitement. We want aura. We want goals. We want level raisers. We want a player that makes our rivals jealous and nervous. We want a name that makes you open YouTube, check compilations, start lying to yourself that you've watched him every week and how he's going to correlate to our team. But that's what makes the Tzolis links interesting. Clearly, he's not the biggest name. Clearly, he's not the sexiest name. Clearly, he's not a global superstar with the greatest of respect. But because he might be one of them footballers where the story makes you look twice, we got to remember, everybody starts somewhere. Tzolis ain't just a random winger putting up numbers somewhere. This is a player who's had to respond to adversity, who had the wonder kid hype, who already had a bit of a struggle in the Premier League, has had to deal with teams, clubs, and managers writing him off, and has had to rebuild his career, really. And at 24 years of age, those good and bad moments, that level of adversity, which you could equate that to several players in our side, and shows me he's got a personality that means he could thrive. Now, naturally, reports have linked Arsenal with a move for around £34 million. People, suggestions Arsenal are interested in him won't necessarily stop our pursuit of Morgan Rodgers or Bukola. As I stated, he's currently at Club Brugge. Apparently, he's had a great season. I've alluded to the fact that he's got 36 goals, 36 games, 17 goals, and 23 assists. Obviously, if those numbers could somewhat correlate, it's great. And I know I'm being a bit lazy, but those numbers are better than apart all of our attackers really in the Premier League, apart from Victor Gyökeres, if I'm brutally honest. Now, before we get carried away, we've got to be balanced. I am not suggesting, you know, people should forget everyone else and saying Tzolis is the answer to every potential Arsenal problem. I'm simply saying Arsenal need people who can affect games. Arsenal need to sign those worldies, but also make clever signings, players that, you know, half of these guys that we want and have been linked with, they had to start somewhere. They're now at a premium. Not just neat players, not just tidy players, not just players who look good in the build-up, players who are killers, who can assist, shoot, score, hurt teams, and make defenders uncomfortable. And that's where I think Tzolis is worth discussing. The numbers clearly allowed, but even beyond the numbers, his journey is interesting. You know, he came through in his homeland. He was labeled as one of those Greek wonder kids and the talent. And again, when you're coming out of Greece, everybody's going to wax lyrical. Went to Norwich at 19. It didn't work out. It's as simple as that. Came to England with a hype. Potentially English football humbled him. And this is where I think football fans can be lazy. You know, a player struggles once at any club or in any country, and that becomes his whole identity. You know, Salah, I'm not suggesting this individual's going to be Salah. Salah didn't work at Chelsea. That kind of followed him. It's fair to say those tags are gone. And it's fair to say if Liverpool had that logic of he's a Chelsea flop, don't sign him, they don't win a Prem or 2 Champions Leagues or potentially have Mo Salah as a legend. And there's probably not a lot of kids in Liverpool that would have been named Mo. That's cool, though. You know, he flopped at Norwich. Players are not finished products, rarely, unless you're Messi at 19, 20, 21. Sometimes the move's wrong. Sometimes the club's wrong. Sometimes the manager is wrong. Sometimes the manager changes. Sometimes your confidence fluctuates and goes. Sometimes, simply put, young players are not ready. Sometimes you need to suffer in life, go away, suffer a little bit and rebuild. And that's what he's done. He went to Dusseldorf and basically reminded people, you know what, say what you want about me. Hold on, I can play. You know, he's described as flourishing at Fortuna Dusseldorf, people, where he finished as the Bundesliga second division top goal scorer with 22 goals. Obviously, that got him the move to Club Brugge. That's, that's not worth nothing. Then he goes to Club Brugge and he keeps producing. Let's be serious. Is the Belgium league up there probably with the Dutch and the Italian and the English and the other top 5 leagues? If Belgium's even counted as a top 5 league, 100% not. But half of these players, you want them anyways, people. It's not a Sunday league environment. They're a serious club. They play in Europe. He played against us and he's performed in Europe as well. They're used to developing players. They're used to using that to sell talent as well. When he has gone into Europe, he's shown his moments, people. You saw him score the winner in the Champions League against Stuttgart. You've seen Club Brugge give a good account of themselves generally last season in Europe. So the question isn't, is Tzolis a big enough name? It's, does he give something Arsenal they need? For me, potentially the answer is yes. We need clarity on that left-hand side. Regardless of Tzolis, we need a level raiser. But Trossard's looking like he's leaving. There's still a number of question marks over Martinelli. If you were to sign Morgan Rogers, like with Eze, we don't know if long-term you're going to be the left-wing option. Gabriel Jesus is a versatile attacker, but his days are numbered. Saka's obviously on the right, as is Madueke. Of course, they could be moved over, but we don't know what's going on. I don't need to tell you, lot. When we played our best football in 2022-23, and also the best football teams, they're threatening down not only the right and also the left. You can't be a serious title-winning team where every opponent knows stop Saka or stop your right-hand side and Arsenal are done for. That's not sustainable. We need goals from everywhere, and clearly we need goals from our attackers, and clearly we need goals from our wide men, people. And whatever you think of Tzolis, people, whatever you think of the league, he's been a wide player putting the ball in the back of the net. He's clearly an intelligent footballer. He's clearly a good finisher with both feet. He's clearly a thinker's man's footballer. For me, he's a younger Trossard kind of model, people. Not to be nerdy or overcomplicate, he's a left-sided attacker who wants to affect in the final phase, people. He's not just standing there hugging the touchline for decoration. He can take his man on, but he wants to drift inside, play those neat little passes and get shots away and arrive in the box. He wants to be involved in goals. He wants to combine. With Trossard going, for me, that makes sense, people. That's the profile Arsenal can't get enough of. Sometimes with Arsenal, we have players who help the system, but the final action isn't ruthless enough. Clearly, at an elite level, that matters. You can have all the structure in the world, but somebody has to put the ball in the back of the net. That's why I understand Arsenal looking at potentially 2 types or different types. Bacola's the shiny one. Morgan Rogers is the Premier League proven one. Tzolis is the comeback, high value output one, if I'm honest. Sometimes the squads need all 3 types of thinking. Now let's talk about the Norwich thing properly, because I know fans will use that as a stick. He came to England and he couldn't handle it. Maybe he was a young player in a bad environment and he went at the wrong time. Football is full of players who failed somewhere and later became serious elsewhere. Mohamed Salah didn't work at Chelsea. Neither did Kevin De Bruyne. Serge Gnabry left and became an elite player at Bayern Munich. Different players develop in different circumstances. So I'm not going to sit here and say because Tzolis struggled at Norwich, he can never play in the Premier League. That would be lazy. But I'll also not ignore it. The Premier League's a different animal. The speed, the physicality, the scrutiny, the pressure, the defending individually. And when you're playing for Arsenal, it's a different beast. I'm not on Arsenal buying him for a feel-good factor. I'm on Arsenal buying him so we can, he can play his part in us getting major trophies. If Arsenal are serious about Tzolis, the question has to be, can his output translate? Can he handle teams sitting deep? Can he handle Premier League fullbacks? Can he deal with not starting every week and also potentially starting every week if he earns that? Can he deal with what Mikel Arteta wants from you off the ball as well as on it? Can you press the way he does? Can he be trusted off it? Can he make decisions in tight spaces? These are real questions because we can't afford passengers, people. It's not 2019 anymore where we just take the talent and hope. We're title winners, Premier League champions, and we're tying a title chase as well as any other competition next season. The level is higher. The margin for error has become ever smaller. The price matters. 34 million. Obviously, it doesn't matter if you spent £1, 34 million, or 340 million. If a player works out, it's value well spent or money well spent. If it doesn't work out, it becomes expensive. But with what we're seeing in the current day and some of the prices, you could forgive Arsenal fans like myself for saying, maybe we need our scouts to do their jobs. 34 million is not crazy in this market. It's not exactly cheap, or in fact, it is in this day and age, people. And he's made it clear he wants to leave. So if Arsenal get it done, I'm all for that, people. They clearly have to believe in him. For me, he comes in as left-wing competition, maybe someone who can also play inside or across the front line, depending on the dynamics and the game and, when the rigors of the season comes in. I wouldn't necessarily say I believe he's automatically replacing Martinelli or stopping our pursuits of Morgan Rogers, Bacola, or any other left-wing target that's been identified. He's definitely not going to the right-hand side and replacing Saka, but he's someone that is going to contribute. He's part of a bigger conversation. We need more attacking solutions. That's what a serious club like Arsenal needs to do. We don't wait until one player breaks down or until our attack is stale. We can't wait until the market becomes impossible, people. We need to be stacked. City have had many different versions of themselves, but they've been stacked in attack. Liverpool have quote unquote been stacked at times, or they've been stacked or had 3 elite level players. That's what we need. Last season, there was too many times, regardless of us winning the Prem, the players on the pitch was looking on the bench for solutions, and it was a bit muddy. Jesus has done it at times at Arsenal. Trossard's done it on occasion. You know, Kai Havertz, Eze, this one, that one, and the third. We need all of these players to stand up to be counted and show greater consistency. But some of these players, we know what we're getting. And you know what? If the scouts have done their job, I'm all for it, people. That's why I think these Tzolis links make sense. Would I take him over Bacola? 100% not. He's more a compliment to a Bacola or Rodgers, or let's just say Joe Bloggs, who's another target that's not involved, people. Do you get where I'm going? You know, we need those players that are higher ceiling and come with that premium, but we also need to replace Trossard, people, if I'm completely honest. And when you deep it, Tzolis and Rodgers, simply put, they're different kind of profiles. Rodgers is going to give you technical ability, but he's going to give you chaos, versatility, physicality, the ability to drive and ball carrying. Tzolis gives you a more natural goal wide threat and a player who has rebuilt himself through output. For me, Rodgers would be the one I'd push the hardest for. But if Tzolis is part of a wider attacking rebuild, I get it and I'm behind it, people. We cannot say we want smart recruitment and then complain every time Arsenal look at a player before he becomes obvious. Because once that player becomes obvious, we know the price tag goes mad. Every wing is 60, 70 million now. Every attacker is 70 plus million. Every decent Premier League player, whether they've played 5 or 10 appearances, everybody wants them and the premium to match. So sometimes you need to find a player before the lazy fans know the name. And it might be Tzolis. But again, I'm not trying to overdo it. If I couldn't be clear, the one big concern is, can you correlate what you've done in the Belgium League to the Premier League? You're 24 now, I believe. You was 19 at Norwich. But can you do it in the Premier League? Obviously, Arsenal are not buying him based off YouTube clips and goal contributions, but it does look like an Arsenal player based on that. But for me, there's more than enough there to understand the logic. He's 24. He's had good and bad moments. He has rebuilt. He has output. He would come with European experience. He plays in a position we need depth in. He would arrive probably hungry and not entitled. There's that hunger to want to achieve, people. And sometimes the best signings are the ones who don't arrive as superstars. Sometimes they're the ones who arrive with something to prove. Tzolis would clearly have to show that. Prove that Norwich was wrong, prove that Belgium was in his ceiling, prove he can do it in England, and ultimately prove he can win and thrive in a team that is Premier League champions and aspiring for Champions Leagues. And as fans, I think we should respect that hunger. We need hunger. We can't have any more, not accusing anyone, but we can't have players who are just happy to be here. We need players that are here to win stuff, not make friends. So I would not make Tzolis our only attacking signing, and I'm not going to sell dreams that I think he's a savior, but I wouldn't dismiss him, because when you strip away the name, the old Norwich label, the league snobbery, there's a serious conversation to be had. We need goals from everywhere. We need goals from wide areas. He's producing goals and assists. Arsenal need players with things to prove. We won the Premier League and got to a Champions League. I very much doubt everybody listening to this wants that to be the end. He's rebuilt his career after being written off. We need to find value in a crazy and mad market. He would provide a cheaper complementary addition than certain other names, people. So the question isn't whether Tzolis is the biggest name. The question is whether he's the right profile at the right price. That's where our football club Arsenal need to be smart. This summer can't just be about hype as much as I want these things, people. Has to be about rebuilding a squad that gives Arteta different ways to win and different ingredients to cook different meals. So I'd say with that, let me know your thoughts. Would you take Tzolis at Arsenal? Are you worried about the Norwich spell? Is there a Belgium league tax? Or is this the type of smart, hungry, high output signing Arsenal should be looking at before everybody wakes up? Get in the comments. Let me know. Subscribe, comment, like, comment, subscribe in a bit.